fast.
Okay.
I have the van.
No, we have the. Oh, here's.
No, it's not 7 o'clock.
Yeah, we're good. Okay.
Is that right?
Rhonda could give a speech.
Acceptance speech?
This conference will now be recorded.
I don't hear any fireworks.
Not yet. 1 minute.
Oh, yeah, after dark. By yourself tonight.
Yeah, I'm all alone. Maybe it was my perspiration.
I worked too hard today. All right, good evening. It's 7 o'clock. I'd like to call the July 3rd DeSoto City Council meeting to order. We'll start with roll call, please.
Lane? Here. Michael?
Here.
Daniels?
Here.
McMoran? Patterson?
Here.
Mayor, it appears Councilmember McMoran is absent.
All right. I would now invite you all to please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, our first item tonight is our consent agenda. Tonight on the consent agenda, we have approved the minutes from the June 18th City Council meeting, approve pay ordinance number 1000, approve agreement with Integrity Services for streetlight locates, approve resolution 2067 authorizing consumption and sale of alcohol for the summer concert series, approve temporary use permit for DeSoto Days, and approve temporary use permit for Learn Nature event. Is there any item anyone would wish to remove from the council or the consent agenda for further discussion? Hearing none, can I have a motion to approve the consent?
I'll make a motion, we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion of the motion? Roll call, please.
Mayor Walker?
Yes.
Daniels?
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
Lane? Yes. Patterson?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right. Item 2 is call to the public. Members of the public are welcome to use this time to comment about any matter relating to city business not on tonight's agenda. The comments that are discussed under call to public may or may not be acted on by the council during this meeting. There is a 4-minute time limit. Does anyone wish to address the council under call to public? Are you here for the rezoning or? Okay, come on up then.
I know there's a time limit on this.
4
and so
minutes.
I just, I've made a copy of this for each
Would
of you.
you
on
mind
that way.
stating your name and address for the Clerk, please.
My name is Sally Vandenhull. I live at 8465 Peoria Street here in DeSoto. I just had a number of things that I thought should be brought to the attention of the council, and so I've made a list of them with photographic evidence, and I was just going to give them out to you, and you can read them at leisure. I thought there were only 6 of you, though, so maybe you can share them. Thank you. Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else?
Hello, this is Zach Greger. I'm online.
Okay, Zach, did you have some comments that you wanted to bring forward?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
This is Zach Greger, 8341 Larry Street in DeSoto, Kansas. My comment was for the council and the city in general, and that is regarding the proposed community center, the YMCA proposal. And that is that I like the idea. I'm hoping that at some point the master plan includes facilities for the DeSoto High School swim and dive teams. I saw in the current plan the aquatics, family pool and lap lanes, but I didn't see anything about DHS swim and dive. And I just wanted to add that if at all possible, if that could be considered at some point, I think it would be greatly appreciated by the high school, the school board, all the residents, instead of having to travel to a middle school in Olathe or anywhere else for the team to practice and conduct meets. And that's really all I had to add. I don't have anything else. That was my concern.
All right, thank you. All right, item 3 is old business. We don't have any, so we'll go on. Item 4A, review and discuss the performa for the proposed community center. Brandon?
Yeah, good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight's discussion is just a follow-up from the community center feasibility study discussion we had earlier in the year. What we're presenting tonight is a draft performa prepared by the YMCA, which includes kind of a range of the popular amenities identified in the community survey. The purpose of the survey is simply to illustrate what the facility could look like. It's not a commitment to any particular design or cost. Next steps would include, with council's authority, is essentially to a formal master planning process, which would essentially look like us sharpening our pencils, working with an advisory group, local stakeholders, and the public to define the scope, priorities, and budget for the project. The master plan would help us confirm the amenities that make sense for DeSoto, align the design with financial projections, and finally explore options for scaling down or phasing up the project. Just so we're understanding, there's no commitment to any one of these amenities. All we ask for tonight is simply just for the authorization to approve the master planning process. Today we have 2 representatives from the YMCA who can kind of walk you through the performa. I think Mark's going to take the lead on it, and I'll turn it over to Mark, and if there are any questions, we'll kind of tag team it and work our way through it. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mark.
Sure.
Good evening again. Good to see you. Happy 4th Eve. So the performa that you have in front of you, we'll step back. The market study that was done, and I believe the last time we were here, the request was to take a look at that market study and come up with an operating performa that was based upon the market researches, which is what we've done in the past with several of our partnership-wise. This one, what we did, if you remember the page, it had all these numbers on it. It had an aggressive column, it had a moderate column, and it had a conservative. So we decided to go down the middle and take a look at the moderate and mid-priced performa. And that's what you see today. It's right down the middle. And I'll just jump ahead to the bottom right-hand corner that shows during a ramp-up period of 5 years, the projection that we came up with, that it could get to a break-even after a management fee to the YMCA to operate it we could get to a fifth-year operating, break even, and just a minor surplus. Now, again, this is a projection, it's pro forma. It's an opportunity for us to take a look at what we've done in other YMCA's, and then kind of build out an expense and revenue, a P&L, if you will, and show those line by line on how we see things happen. I could go line by line and talk a little bit about it, but we've based it on that mid-mod number that was in the market study, which shows about 1,774 units as a projection. If we price it a certain way, which is the price representation in the membership fees here, if we add the amenities that were asked for, again, that fit into what we would consider the right size, or at least a size to attain to down the road, depending on funding for construction. And so we picked a 50,000 square foot facility, and we basically put a membership base into that over a course of 5 years to ramp it up, because they all don't show up at day one. We needed about a 3-year point to get to where we still feel pretty good about where revenues are starting to come in and expenses are controlled. And again, I will, over my left-hand shoulder with Angie, who's our Chief Operating Officer, can take you through the amenities. But what I would say is we've got membership dues in there, we've got a summer camp in there, we've got some program fees in there. We did not put childcare in there. That was one of the conversations that we had. So we removed anything from an operating childcare. We have some facility rentals in there. And then, as always, being a not-for-profit, we're going to raise funds in the community to invest back into the community so we can scholarship and provide financial assistance to those that can't pay all the stated fees. And then the expenses, the largest one is always going to be salaries for us. And again, we have control of those salaries based upon what the revenue and the participation levels are in all of those. And then the occupancy would be the other large expense on the line. That is just based upon the square footage of the building. Obviously, the building's not that large or starts out a little bit smaller. You're obviously going to see those occupancy comes down, which is, that's incorporating all utilities, that's incorporating some minor maintenance in it. The last thing I'll say is the expense at the bottom, the fitness equipment. In several of our facilities, we have a lease payment that we lease fitness equipment so we can roll it over. It's built into the operating pro forma. If you were to pull that out, we're talking that's probably a $75,000 amenity that can come off right from the beginning from an operating if you want to purchase that equipment as part of the construction and FF&E that you would go into. So what you see is a direct net without the management fee, and it shows by year 3 this thing is, if we hit those targets and we see that revenue and we have those expenses, you have a very positive net on the bottom line. As the YMCA coming in to manage that, our management fee starts is at 15%. That's what we show as a management fee to operate that. What that does, it gives us a little bit of margin to work with internally, but it does all those pieces that are going to our management fee are all the operating overhead. It's the numbers that we traditionally charge our operating facilities that we have, that we own, the 6 facilities that we own in the metro. These are very similar numbers to what we have with our partnerships across the city. And then we show the net after management fee. And for a year 3 operation with 1,700 units, with that membership revenue, getting it close to a break even is a pretty big win there. And hopefully doing better than that. Again, this is a conservative model, even though it says mod mid, right? I think that's all I really wanted to say about the performance, but I'll take some questions before maybe Angie steps up here and talks about amenities and facilities and programs that fit into this model.
Questions from council?
Yeah, so in terms of having an RFP to go forward with the master planning of it, and included in that is models for funding strategies. Obviously, there's a capital component, and then there's this operating expense component. How is that loss, and how's that 5 years typically funded or recovered? Or is it built into a bigger capital and operating model?
Yeah, that would be a separate model that, however, again, the city would choose to do the capital, again, raising the funds or finding the funds or allocating the funds to build the facility. Our job would be to come in and make sure that we can get it to a break-even point. and not have, we would not see the capital funds run through this. That would be my perspective. Is that the right way to say that, Brandon?
That's true, yeah.
Okay.
But
Did I answer your question?
No, I assume you're also not absorbing the loss.
Correct.
Yeah.
We would want
So
to
the loss
front.
has got to be worked into.
It
whatever
does.
financial
Yes, sir. That's a great question. So if you were to roll that across and if it did project there, I will give you some examples, some similarities to this operating pro forma. This is very similar to the downtown Y we just opened up ourselves amid the pandemic. A great timing to have a Y try to open up in 2021, but we did. And so a very similar model that showed in the first year of operation that we would have about a $1 million loss in the first year of operation. We controlled the expenses because of the membership and the program participation that we were able to create that and bring that down to just a $300,000 loss. So this is a high-end, worst-case scenario projection that we have. It's our responsibility to be better fiscal stewards of the responsibility than this shows, but this is, again, we don't want to underpromise or overpromise and underdeliver. We want to make sure that we're setting this thing up right. So our goal would be able to do obviously much better than that in year one, and you can see how that trails off in year two. And operate it closer to a better net on the bottom line. But after years of doing this, I will say, first year, 2 year, 3 year ramp up, sometimes just depending on how the market responds, it could take a 4 year ramp up to get a little bit. So it's fluid a little bit. But it's our responsibility to make sure we operate as tight as possible. Other questions? Okay. All right, I'll let Angie, I guess that's what you'd like to do, Brandon?
Yeah, no, I think, Angie, if you want to walk through something.
Did you have a question, Mike? Oh, okay,
Yeah.
sorry.
The only thing I would say kind of before Angie comes in is, that's part of the master planning process is we'll kind of refine what this looks like. We'll ask the community. So this is not set in stone, but it is kind of a jumping off point for us to start the process. So, turn it over.
Thank you, Brandon. As in the packet, we have a worksheet that we just provide what potential amenities, I should put potential instead of anticipated amenities, because that is still very much up in the air based on program that you may already be doing with Parks and Recs programs or other partners, as well as what facilities end up being in the final design plan for the center. So when you look at programming, one of the unique things about the program that a YMCA or community center does is that multi-age, from infant all the way to senior, all demographics, all interest. And so we try to provide a lot of different activities that are going to help in 3 different core areas: youth development, healthy living, and social responsibility. So everything that we do falls under one of those components. So in the healthy living space, we're definitely going to have activities for fitness, whether it's classes, individual workouts, walking tracks, studios for all different types of classes. The aquatics falls under youth development and healthy living and social responsibility, because in addition to making sure that our kiddos know how to swim, we provide water exercise classes, and we also do lifeguard training, and we're typically a first employer for many kids. So we provide a lot of training and opportunities for certification. Community spaces are up based on what is available in your community already. That could in things like for birthday parties, rentals, kitchens, classrooms, a basketball court, which is used for a lot of different activities, a multi-use space, and then youth activity spaces, depending on, again, what surveys people are showing, what activities they want, and what that final layout may include. With programs, in addition to the facility-based programs that we just talked about, we have additional social activities for seniors, different types of classes for youth and teen based around STEAM activities, the science, technology, arts, mathematics, kids' nights out, ways for parents to be able to have some spare time. Blood drives, what other type of community activities may not already be happening in your community that you may be interested in providing, and those are always fluid. If there's an interest, we can always add programming. If something's not working, we can always make changes. So we have a lot of flexibility and opportunities, and I stated again, programming ideas are always welcome. So if there's not something that's on here, we're always open for conversations. And as Mark mentioned with the staffing cost, that first year, of course, it's going to be having the professional staff that are going to be able to lead staff and be able to bring staff on board, but the staffing on how many classes we offer, how many swim lessons we offer, how many exercise classes is going to be fluid based on the need and as the membership and participation ramps up. So I went through that pretty quickly. Is there any questions on any of that?
Just, how about like liability insurance and work comp insurance, is that something that you guys handle?
Yes,
or-
it sure is.
Okay.
Yes, we cover all of that within our responsibility, and that's figured into budgeting cost.
Thanks.
I have a question.
Sure.
With other partners that you've worked with, how do you make sure or not to duplicate what the city's already doing? You know, I mean, how does that work? Like if you're coming in, do you already look to see what the city's already offering?
Yeah, that's definitely part of the investigation process when we sit down with the committee of saying, okay, what are you looking for? What is not already being met? We've also had other partners that say, you know, we've been trying to run this program. We would love to be able to step out of it. Can you help? May or may not be able to. But we definitely don't want to encroach on something that's already working and working well. So different partnerships that could be, where we see a lot of that is in sports. We have a lot of organizations that are doing competitive sports really well or other sports. But we come in with the younger kiddos that maybe aren't ready for leagues, but just instruction. So we have ways to just kind of to find out what the community's looking for and how we can partner together.
Yeah, how are you handling the situations that brought to public light about men being in the women's facilities and that kind of situation, which means a lot to this community? So how are you guys addressing that? We've heard that it is a problem and wanted your concerns about that.
Sure.
And what's being done.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. One of the components that you're seeing with building facilities is the identification of having individual neutral general spaces. If somebody has their own restroom, they have their own shower and their sink, and based on what their family needs is, versus having male or female locker rooms. So you're seeing a lot of build out to be able to help the communities in whatever somebody's situation may be. That way they have their private space and it's comfortable for everybody.
The maintenance, upkeep of the building, is that something that's under your budget? Is that something that's shared with the city? Is it on the city? I mean, I've been through a lot of YMCA's and some are nicer than others. Is it ages? Whose responsibility is the upkeep and maintenance and appearance of the facility?
Yeah, that's a great question. We have multiple models. So with our partner-wise, we have one partnership where the city is completely responsible for all capital maintenance and all maintenance in the facility. They handle the maintenance staff, and they put it into their budget to handle any kind of large maintenance requirements. Other partnerships may be that if there is a subsidy, or not subsidy, excuse me, but if there is a positive net at the end of the day, then that money goes into a capital development pot so that can be used for large capital items. But as a property of the city would be responsible for maintenance, and then we would talk about in our agreement if that's going to look like us having custodial staff and on-site maintenance staff as well.
How's that figured into the pro forma that we're seeing before us?
I believe we have our maintenance staff figured in this.
We do. We have the, what I would call the ongoing annual maintenance staff, anything that has to do with consumables. We have in this probably lawn mowing, maintenance and snow plowing, whatever it might be to maintain a parking lot if that's there. But mowing, we have custodial wrapped up into this.
Would that be in the occupancy line?
Yeah, that would be in that occupancy line, yeah. There's a certain dollar figure that kind of averages across all our centers.
So if there's a preferred method, we can definitely have those conversations and continue to play out the numbers based on that.
Any others?
All right, thank you very much.
So the ask today, Mayor, if council is comfortable, is just authorizing us to prepare an RFQ for the master planning process.
Who would be the vendor for such a?
So we would put out an RFQ. It would be the city's RFQ, and we would select it based on qualifications like we do many other professional services.
I mean, I guess, do we see this being an architect? Is this?
It depends. Sometimes you'll see planners, sometimes you'll see architects. It just kind of depends. Sometimes they're Parks and Rec engineering firms, people that specialize in that. So I've seen multiple different organizations look at that.
And the RFQ, if we decided to go with the YMCA versus not, would be pretty much consistent regardless of who would be the management.
Yeah. They'd be just managing the process of it. So if for some reason there was a wish to go with a city-owned facility, that's how it would operate. That's how the master plan would work.
It's listed in here that budget's included in the 2025 budget. How much was allowed, or how much do you anticipate?
50,000 for the.
You feel like that's you feel like that's still a reasonable fee expectation?
Yeah, I think so. And with it being kind of done later in the year, there's a possibility where maybe we use some money in 2026. And so we'll kind of go out and look and see. But 50,000 seems pretty fair, especially when you think about kind of our Riverfest master plan. That was about 35,000. So we're just going to be looking at preliminary stuff during this master planning process.
Anything else?
So I think I'm comfortable moving forward with the recommendation, but I'd also like to see recommendation from council about engaging with the possible landowners and seeing about securing land, because obviously the community is interested in it. Land's not going to be cheaper if KU is willing to work with us like they were, whether it be a land purchase agreement, whether it be something, but at least engaging in the discussions and moving forward on securing a place that is going to be a good location before that location may not be available.
We can certainly do that.
Okay. Do you need a motion on the author, just a consensus on moving ahead?
There is a motion. I don't know if we necessarily need one, unless there was a kind of a, I guess if we wanted to do kind of authorize the city staff to start to look for sites.
Obviously, it's the next logical step in the development of this project, right?
And we could certainly bring that back when we bring back the RFQ if they're not comfortable. But if we want to do that today, I don't know, Patrick, do you think that's appropriate that they authorize us to start looking for sites, or?
I don't think you need a motion. Obviously, they'll have an opportunity to start.
Okay. Yeah, so I think maybe we necessarily don't have to have a motion. A consensus would be fine. Either one.
I think we have consensus to move forward to the next step.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, item B, consider ordinance 2656 rezoning approximately 80 acres of land north of K10 and east of Evening Star Road from RUR to C2.
All right, thank you, Mayor and Council. What you have before you is a rezoning request. Has gone through the public hearing process with the Planning Commission. Just backing up a little bit, in May, the council approved annexation of 5 parcels of land owned by Clearview LLC. 3 of these are being requested to be rezoned to C2. The other request you had, the R3, has been withdrawn, so we're just going to talk about the C2 tonight. After, like I said, the Planning Commission did hold a public hearing on this item, took public comments, and did recommend approval to the City Council on this item. And then following that recommendation, residents of the area submitted a protest petition that meets the 20% square feet of the notification area and is a valid protest petition. Therefore, a supermajority, 75% of the governing body, must vote yes on this voting or this rezoning request. I'll go through the staff report of some of the items we covered in the Planning Commission meeting, and just briefly, and you'll see kind of a common theme with a lot of these requests we've had lately as we annex property. There's not enough utilities there. The roads aren't quite ready. So there's some issues that certainly bring some negative consideration into the process. But this has been something that's kind of happening as we've been growing and moving towards the southwest along 103rd Street, K10, and Lexington corridors. This area is actually just on Evening Star, just north of K10, but it has been shown on our comprehensive plan for quite some time as a commercial growth area. So with that character of the neighborhood, it's transitioning from rural residential. Now everything north of Evening Star is very rural. There's a chip seal road up there, and there is not the utilities in place to create a commercial district at this time, but this is sort of the first step in a process of looking at this. As I did mention, the comprehensive plan does show this area, the land use plan shows it as a commercial district. Compatibility of the proposed zoning, it does require analysis and looking at all the items within the C2 district. It's not just retailing. There are several decisions and things that within the C2 district that council have to consider. So it isn't just we're looking at big box or retail stores. There's any kind of retail type use or business general type use could go in this location. The property has not been really restricted under its existing zoning as it's initially entering the city under RUR, which it comes into the county or the city with the county's designation, and then it must be rezoned to a appropriate City of DeSoto category. So the tract has been vacant since it came into the city, which has only been a few months, but it's been pasture and rural use for quite some time. The extent that there's a need in the community for the proposed zoning, as with all the development we've been facing, we've had a lot of concern about commercial development, a lot of requests for commercial development, and it's something that expanding your tax base, getting additional revenue is something that's been important. The direction of the City Council, it's part of our comprehensive plan, it's been part of our overall growth for the community itself, especially with the redevelopment of the Sunflower site, which does include Panasonic, and then also north, the Flint development as well. As I mentioned earlier, utilities and services to this area for this proposed zoning, there is no sanitary sewer there. There is electrical service, but it's certainly will have to be upgraded and improved. The road network will have to be improved. It is in Water 7's district, so there will be some coordination with them as far as whether or not they meet the or have the capacity at this point. So there's a lot of steps that have to happen just beyond the rezoning, but the rezoning is really the first step in beginning to look at how the City of DeSoto can serve this area. So that did get a negative in the staff report. The proposed zoning, how it could potentially adversely affect the area, certainly rural residential, a lot of people there that like the quiet life, don't want to have retail or any other types of high-end uses nearby, which is why they chose to be in that area. However, K10 Highway, it's a interchange there. It's been in our comp plan for quite some time, even though there hasn't been any activity until now. Things are changing, and certainly with the growth of DeSoto and the improvements to K10 and all the activity that's happening, this is a logical step for certainly an interchange along a 4-lane highway. Environmental impacts, we talk about those primarily during a site plan if something were proposed, but we will look at stormwater, noise, lighting, traffic impacts. All those things will be addressed as projects are proposed and move forward. So that did get a positive in the staff report. Economic impact, once again, items that generate revenue, property taxes, sale taxes would be good for the city and help fund projects and other things within the city itself. The extent which the zoning may detrimentally affect nearby property, certainly the residents of this area will see changes, and there is a conflict certainly between the rural lifestyle and potential active business general type uses. So that's got a neutral, because there is also a little bit of a trade-off. Now you're closer to things, you don't have to drive into town, so there is somewhat of a trade-off in some ways. As far as the gain or benefit for denying this, well, it would stop any kind of development in this area. Now, once again, utilities, all those things still have to happen prior to the rezoning. The rezoning is just a step. It's changing a color on the map, essentially. So there's a lot of work and effort that still needs to be done before anything could happen in this area. And then finally, as I mentioned, the comprehensive plan, our land use plan, for quite some time, at least over 20 years, has shown this area to be a commercial area, and this rezoning request is consistent with the land use map contained in the comprehensive plan. And for those reasons, city staff did recommend to the Planning Commission approval of this item, and the Planning Commission concurred and makes a recommendation of approval to the City Council. With that, I'll stand for any questions you may have.
All right. I'm open it to questions. I know this isn't a public hearing item, but I do intend to let some folks in the audience that would want to offer comment do so. We'll limit those to 3 minutes per person. Before we do that, does anybody have a question for Brad on the staff report?
So you mentioned roads several times, that they're not there in Ray, but looking at the map, the southwest parcel, I mean, there's not much road to deal with to get to the southwest parcel.
Correct.
Or actually northwest parcel if you're looking from the interchange, but southwest if you're looking from just on the north side. The parcel on the northeast side, on the road, would that be something that the developer would be required to go ahead and actually upgrade the road to maintain, to get access to their property, to where that road issue really is more of a development requirement anyway, as opposed to a hindrance of it's not there?
That is correct. We would put a big part of the onus on developing that road on the actual developer of the property.
So since we're not talking that far from the interchange and not a long stretch of road, that'd be a developed road due to the development, not necessarily a hindrance of the fact that it's not there yet, but be done as a part of the development.
Correct, yes.
Anyone else before I offer the floor to commenters? All right, so I'm gonna, if you're in the audience and want to provide a comment on this, I'm gonna ask you to limit your comments to 3 minutes and be respectful in your comments. And if the comment that you wish to express has already been shared, then perhaps don't go through it all again. But if there's anyone who would like to offer comment, please come forward, state your name and address, and we will take those comments right now.
Hello, my name is Tim DeArmond. I'm a resident here at 33965 West 83rd, and I'm in favor of approving the rezoning for a couple of reasons. As a resident, I've seen my property taxes decrease due to the industrial activity coming to town, which has been a great effect on my family. We also enjoy having multiple options for eating out and shopping, and more business in the area not only gives us more options, but it brings additional workers, which can support the businesses which already exist here in town. So, and also I was going to mention the city's future land map shows it as commercially zoned, so it's in line with the city's vision. So for that, I'm in favor.
All right, thank you for your comments.
My name's Terry Donlin. My wife and I live at 9825 Evening Star Road, approximately a half mile north of K10. It's my understanding that a certain amount of the old ammunition plant is part of DeSoto. Is that correct?
All of it is.
All of it. Okay, well, if that's the case, with all the development taking place, until more development is done out there, I don't understand the big rush to start developing north of the highway with thousands of acres available for development south of the highway. And I know it's coming eventually, that vacant land between us and the highway. But the years we've lived out there, people have come out there, bought small tracts of land, built houses, they're raising families. I've got no problem with that, but I'm very skeptical of proposed development that could potentially have a negative impact on our property values, because we're not going to stay out there too much longer. We're eventually going to downsize and move. But between now and then, we're fine with having cows for neighbors between us and the highway. I would ask that at the current time, the current zoning that's in place stay as it is. And after there's been thousands of acres more developed south of the highway, then go ahead and take a look at it. And when that time comes, I hope my wife and I have been able to move and get out of there, because I don't like what I see coming. And I'd like to see the current situation and zoning that's in place remain as is. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Anyone else?
I'll speak briefly. GW Weld Properties and Alcove Development, 707 Main Street, Eudora. I'm the applicant on this project, and I want to thank you for taking the time to discuss it. And I certainly understand that the neighbors are not happy to see development come near them. I understand when you live in a rural area, you'd like to see it continue to be rural. And so tried to take some time to meet with some of the neighbors and discuss their concerns and let them know what we're proposing. We've pulled our multifamily rezoning request because that seemed to be very contentious with a couple of the neighbors. So we're certainly making an effort to make this palatable for them. At the same time, I just would like to remind the council that not only has, for the last 20 plus years, this been shown in the future land use map as commercial property. We've got a staff report, a planning commission recommendation, and the comprehensive plan that was updated in 2022 that all support what we're trying to accomplish here. So I would just ask you to support the things that have been decided years ago. The city took a lot of time to lay out what made sense in what parts of town. And so as developers, we try to match that. And so I would just ask you to honor that work that the city has done previously. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer, but I doubt that you do.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, Judy Donlin, 9825 Evening Star Road. I understand they've pulled the multifamily request. Does this mean that you're planning on going through with the commercial request for that area? Do you feel that?
We're just here to talk about this one application tonight, ma'am.
Okay, well, I still feel it's wrong. It's messing with our lifestyle, our property value, our way of life, our peace of mind. And also somebody can make some money.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right. Patrick, do you want to say a few
Sure.
guidance?
Just a reminder, the decision that you have before you is considered a quasi-judicial proceeding. So you are in the role of weighing evidence, making a decision, because whoever's on the losing end of the decision could challenge it legally, whether that's the developer or property owners. So in connection with that, the Kansas Supreme Court, in a case back in the 80s, indicated that in you're making a decision, you need to consider the golden criteria. And the golden criteria is simply the name of that case, the plaintiff in that case. But the Supreme Court indicated that you can't just make a decision, your decision has to be focused on the golden criteria. And those are the items that Brad went over, A through M in the staff report. And essentially, what the Supreme Court indicated is that by following those criteria, your decision will not be unreasonable or arbitrary and capricious. So here tonight, we need to make sure we make a good decision that is consistent with the golden criteria, as well as, and I know it may be tough to hear, but the Supreme Court also, in a case involving a Taco Bell in Mission, Kansas, indicated that you cannot make your decision solely based on objections by neighbors. You have to, in your consideration, you have to take into consideration the community as a whole, not just the people that live near the rezoning site that object to it. Also, in that same case, the Supreme Court indicated that in making your decision, you cannot ignore the comprehensive plan. That document is something, not that you have to, you're not bound by it, but it's something that has to be part of the consideration. So, so hopefully that gives you some guidance. As far as your decisions, if there's a motion on the rezoning that does not reach the 3/4 majority, meaning 5 yes votes, then it's required that your next step, you have to either make a motion to deny the rezoning, or alternatively, you can send the item back to the Planning Commission with an explanation as to why you did not grant the rezoning or deny the rezoning. So, happy to answer any other questions.
Does anyone have a question?
Just on that, Patrick, I think if it were to be remanded back to Planning Commission, it also has to go specific. On the criteria, you have to specify which criteria you're taking exception to or asking them to revisit.
Really, the statute on a protest petition says when it goes, you just need to give an explanation as to why you didn't grant the rezoning or deny it.
But do they have to rehear it? Do they have to act on it again?
The Planning Commission does.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they can either ignore it or send back another recommendation, either the same one or a different one.
Yeah.
And then it'll still be a 3/4 majority vote when it comes back up to the council.
Yeah.
But yes, in sending it back, I do think it would be good to specify, what you would like the Planning Commission to look further at, or what your concerns are that that the Planning Commission should take another look.
Okay.
Well, I guess since
Go ahead. You ready to start?
I support the recommendation of the Planning Commission, and I support the findings of the staff report, as well as the staff's recommendation for approval. As far as a couple of particular items, like infrastructure part being rated neutral, that's not a negative, but when we're looking at a rezoning, we're looking at entitlement for potential use on a property. The infrastructure is considered really at site plan stage, or at the time where you're considering what the actual use may be. So it's entirely possible and not unreasonable that a zoning be granted when the infrastructure is not there to support it, because it just creates an opportunity then to consider what kind of infrastructure would be needed given that particular use. As far as land availability, really every landowner has an opportunity to pursue further growth and development on their land, and so it's not their land to go build somewhere else on. It's their land that they've got right there to do something with and consider doing something with. But with regard to the comp plan, I pulled out the 2004 future land use map from when I was on Planning Commission and Dave Anderson was mayor. And these tracts at hand were shown as mixed use allowing for commercial use, 21 years ago, and it had been in that scenario prior to 21 years ago. Also, that Evening Star interchange was shown as a primary gateway, so it was shown to be intended that that's an entry to our city. That's a primary gateway entry to our city. So, there have been a lot of revisions to the comp plan, including opportunities for public engagement, open houses, public comment, approval by planning commissions, and approvals by city councils of updates and modifications. And so I think what I'm happy with is this proposal is absolutely consistent with what the comprehensive plan and the future vision of the city has contemplated for that corner for decades. So
All right.
I'm in support.
Rob, you ready?
No, I'm supportive of it. It's been planned that for the entire time I've been on council before that, but I mean, we've not only was it in that 2004, but it's also been reaffirmed through the years. As we've gone through the future land use map, the comprehensive plan, it's been reaffirmed by multiple councils that is an appropriate place at that intersection for that coming in. And with the development of the acreage in Astor and things like that, there are going to be industrial, manufacturing, other things like that. Having commercial on and off points of the highway makes clear sense for the employees and the traffic that's going to be through that area as well. So it is completely in line with everything that's been published, presented, reaffirmed over the decades.
Danny, any comments?
Yes, I thought long and hard on this myself, and I am affirmed that, it's been in the plan, it's been there for quite 20 years, almost, so, I know that it's rough on the people that have homes out there, and I understand that, and I know that things happen, but I also look at the good of the city and what the future use of that area is, so I'm in agreement.
Okay. Rhonda, you want to offer any comment?
No, not at this time.
Okay. I'll jump in with a few thoughts, very similar to those that have been expressed, that this has been part of the comprehensive plan and shown in this use for many years, and has been through, as Kevin pointed out, numerous reaffirmations that this is an appropriate use at that interchange. And you can look at interchanges along K10 from Lawrence to Lenexa and see that interchanges develop with a certain commercial aspect to them in the vicinity of the interchange. You hit one of the points that property owners do have rights to develop their property or attempt to develop their property as they see fit, but that development, those improvements, those infrastructure improvements that are needed are going to be driven by the development. Those aren't going to be, I don't see the city going forward to make that ready for development. So potentially I see this as needing significant investment before it is ready to put on the market, and maybe a number of years before I would, it may actually see this land use. But the C2 zoning, it's an appropriate application and it's the right zoning for that location, and I just can't see any reason why we would not follow through with what we've said that it should be for so many years.
Well, to that end, then I'll make a motion to approve ordinance number 2656, providing for the amendment of the DeSoto official zoning map of approximately 80 acres of land, as included in the packet tonight, from Johnson County zoning RUR to City of DeSoto zoning district C2 Business General District.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion of the motion? Roll call, please.
Mayor Walker,
Yes.
Daniels,
Yes.
Hunter Michael.
Yes.
Lane,
Yes.
Patterson,
Yes.
motion carries.
All right. Item C, consider funding proposal from the DeSoto Days Committee.
Comment.
Sure.
So, just so everybody knows, in our code of ethics, normally, if you're affiliated with a company, you would need to recuse yourself, but our code indicates that if you serve on a 501c3 board, then you're not conflicted. So with new council member Patterson, she's obviously involved in DeSoto Days, has been for years and years, so she is free to participate and take a vote on the matter.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight, I am introducing a request from the DeSoto Days Committee for additional funding sponsorship for the 61st Annual DeSoto Days Festival. A little background information, there is a DeSoto Days line item in the general fund, and most of that goes towards the city's hard costs for things like portables and wash stations. And then the other part of that goes to the coverage for the Johnson County Sheriff Event Patrol. But then every year we also give the DeSoto Days Committee a grant. For as long as I have been here, we have given them a $4,000 grant every single time. And while costs are rising every year for us, for the sheriff contract, we have given the same amount. So for this year, they came to us a couple weeks ago and have requested an additional $12,000 to cover the festival this year. So I'm going to call up a member of the committee and to answer any questions and talk about why they are making this request.
All right, thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, community residents. My name is Joe Sabo, and I'm a volunteer on the DeSoto Days Committee.
Do you need Joe's address, Brandon? No, I have. All right. Sorry to interrupt.
He's been over a few times.
It's public record.
So I come to you tonight on behalf of the DeSoto Days Committee, and first off, I'd like to express our sincere thanks for the city's participation and donations and grants to the festival in the past, present, and going forward. The resources the city provides are vital to the success of DeSoto Days, not just the financial grant, but the support of trash collection and setup, et cetera. So last year, we estimate DeSoto Days for the 60th anniversary brought in approximately 10,000 people to DeSoto. Probably the largest DeSoto Days event we've ever had. So as we're preparing for this year's event, and as Whitney mentioned, we're requesting an additional $12,000 to our funding. A couple of things that reflect on this request. Number one is just the growing attendance and what it takes to put on the event. What was once just a small town event is becoming a regional event, and we're seeing people from outside of DeSoto, other communities, and other community event hosts coming to see DeSoto Days because of what it's become. So DeSoto Days Festival might be the first time for many visitors to DeSoto, but we want to make sure we're putting on a safe, well-organized, and having a well-funded event's a must. The increased attendance means more foot traffic. More foot traffic means more spending locally while people are here. And it's important to note that the entire DeSoto Days committee is fully volunteer. Amongst our servants to DeSoto Days, we have a professional accountant, we have small business owners, an insurance agent, a logistics director, many professionals that help put on DeSoto Days. I'd estimate together, many of us put in over 1,000 hours of volunteer effort into DeSoto Days. So let's speak on rising event costs. Just a few years ago, if you wanted to see the entertainment, whether it was at Miller Park, we operated bands on a 20-foot utility trailer. And we've improved now to a professional stage, lighting, and an actual, music director who handles sound. Our tent rentals have increased. But just within entertainment, the bands, our professional stage rentals, both east and west stage rentals, we incur a cost of almost $28,000. But yet, we keep DeSoto Days free and open to the public. So, in general, we haven't requested any type of increase in several years. And we do so now with just the utmost respect and gratitude for the city's longstanding partnership with DeSoto Days. And I come to you asking for a $12,000 increase to the city's grant fund. Again, as I mentioned, we have several professionals within the committee. Our advertising costs are also exponential and continue to increase. But with that, we have the potential to keep growing DeSoto Days. And as we all know, with the changes that will be coming downtown within the next year or 2 years, we have a better chance to also increase the size of what we cover and provide additional vendor space, amusement park ride space, and keep growing DeSoto Days. So, any questions?
All right, any questions from council?
So you mentioned some of the expenses. What is your overall budget, and therefore what fraction of your overall budget would this $16,000 represent?
So this year I would estimate our budget to be close to $60,000. Some of the biggest things in that, Kevin, include our advertising, which last year was approximately $8,000. Entertainment, we spent just close to $14,000. It's important to note that the people that work on the committees, for entertainment, for example, when we're out shopping for bands, I would say, it's important to let you know that bands come to us. Bands come to DeSoto Days wanting to play here, and we have to turn some of them away. We don't take their first price. We have, I would say, one of our greatest influencers and helpers of DeSoto Days beats up the bands for the best price, right? So. We're diligent with our funding and what we raise, and we feel that our spending is in line with other festivals. Our tent rental, so we have several tents east and west and in the middle as well, approach $14,000 for a 3-day festival. And that's the setup, that's the tear down. And then as I mentioned previously, the entertainments and the bands last year were close to $14,000 as well. And then several incremental costs also add up into that. We have a generator rental that approaches $5,000 because of the lack of power on the west side of the festival, which is another big one. And then just general funds, supplies, postage, everything that goes into keeping it upbeat and being prepared for throughout 12 months of the year.
So you're only asking for about a quarter of your budget, and you're fundraising the other 3/4 through sponsorships and
we do, yes, that would be very close. And I would back that up with the problem that we run into frequently, because our budget runs so close to what we raise, is the fact that our vendors and what we bring in are coming in just before the festival. So we're always operating kind of on a just-in-time, last-minute kind of scenario.
Anyone else?
Just some clarification. It says we've budgeted 11,000 and there 4,000 is a grant. Is the 11,000 for our expenses and then the 4,000 for the grant? So is it 15,000 for DeSoto Days, or is the 4,000 from the 11,000? Or is the 11,000 available to, so are we actually approving 12,000 additional, or is this approving, you see where I'm going with that?
Yeah, so for this year, in 2024, you can see it in the chart. In 2025, we've also, the line item is 11,000, and then we last year spent a little. We'll spend maybe 7,000 for the sheriff and the city expenses, 8,000. The rest goes to DeSoto Day. So that 4,000 and then the city's hard cost is all covered in that one line item. So what you're basically would be approving is going over that line item by probably 12,000. We hit it about every year.
If I'm reading that the way I think you're saying it, we went over last year over budget by $6,000
Yes.
last year as well. So
Yeah.
we were over last year in addition to.
Last year was a little special because there's the generator. We did cover the generator last year.
Okay.
Usually we don't, but that's why that is
So that's
higher.
a hard cost that we're putting back to them, but that they need extra help with. So like I said, I'm just trying to get clarity for our residents and anybody that's paying attention to go, okay, what are we really doing compared to what we budgeted and what we're approving? So we are actually looking at an additional 12,000 above our budget. So we'd be talking budgeting, I mean, it'd be what, 23,000 or 27? Does the grant come out of the 11,000 or?
Yes.
Okay, so it'd be 23,000 that we're looking at
Yes.
budgeting for one of the largest events in our city.
Yes.
As far as that goes, so. Yeah, I'm
Does that sound
favorable to it.
good?
I'm just wanting to make sure that the numbers are clear as far as what we're actually voting on tonight.
Absolutely. Does that sound right, Mike?
Yeah, that's
Ben?
all.
Okay.
Well, I think it's pretty telling that, we see that city expenses, through the years of this have steadily gone up, but then that one column, it has been steady. And so it's, we know that things have gotten much more expensive as time goes on. So it's shouldn't be surprising that, if we want to have the festival that everybody wants to have, it's going to cost more money.
Yeah, not only have the costs gone up, but the event's gotten bigger.
And the event has gotten bigger and more
grown,
popular.
and attendance and the attraction and the
So-
business, benefit from it is all grown.
Likewise, I'm very supportive of the request. I think if there's no other comments.
I'll make a motion. We approve the additional 12,000 sponsorship grant to support DeSoto Days Committee and help ensure the continued success and value to the community event.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Michael.
Yes.
Daniels.
Yes.
Lane.
Yes.
Patterson.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, thank you. Item D, consider change order for the City Hall renovation project.
Go to baseball.
Good evening. I'm the better looking version of Cameron. Just want to make sure everybody was aware of that. No, he's out of the office this week, so I'm pinch hitting, I guess you could say. So what you have before you is a change order on the City Hall remodel project. This started with the site lighting and landscaping plan for in the front of the building. Basically, what's going on here is we're removing some lighting on some of the uplighting on the trees out front, and then proposing permanent lighting on any of the on the art locations out front. As well as the original plan did not have concrete bases for the bollard lighting. will be installed along the sidewalk in front of the building. Going along with that, we are asking for replacement of the existing flagpole, which I'm sure you're aware is located kind of in between the community center and City Hall entrance on the north side of the building. Funding for these change orders will come from the previously approved 10% contingency on this project from the original contract agreement. Just a little bit more background. I talked about the pedestals and needing to get the concrete bases added to those just for structural integrity and ongoing maintenance. Spoke to the lighting out front of doing away with a lot of the uplighting for the trees, but adding lighting to the for the art pieces. Speaking to the flagpole a little bit more, because that's the biggest addition in this change order. The current one we have has been taken down, I think, twice since I've been here. I don't. Somebody else could probably speak to this. I don't know if it's original or what, but
I bet it predates Danny's time here at the building.
Okay. So it hadn't been very long.
No.
Yeah. Okay. You're welcome, Danny. So it's been there a while. We've taken it down a couple times and sandblasted and painted it. I think it's personally lived its useful life. A couple of things that, obviously we run into with, external rope and clips and halyards that obviously with the wind banging on that, and that even after we get done painting within a few weeks, it doesn't look very good anymore. Also, the height of the pole. Since we have 4 flags on that pole, when we go to half staff, we fight every time. To truly go to half staff, the bottom flag would almost be on the ground, so we kind of go to 3/4 staff when we need to. And then some of our favorite teenagers around the area help us out with that as well, since it is external and can be changed. So what we're proposing in here is a 40-foot pole with downlight LED lighting, which our neighbor to the north would be very happy about. Internal cabling in a lockable system. And then also the other reason for incorporating this at this time was contractors already going to be running electrical through that area with other lighting that's going to be added on throughout this project. So included in that, I'm sorry, one more thing, included in that last paragraph, we're talking numbers here. Total amount of this specific change order is $19,080.60. Remaining contingency for the project is currently $28,000, $28,088.66. Also, we have received a credit from the contractor for plaster repair that's no longer needed because we're furring some walls out upstairs, and the amount of $21,690. So in conclusion, if approved, the original contract amount with the contingency included would have a remaining available amount of $30,000 left in that contingency fund. So I know Cameron's been up here quite a bit, so he warned me a little bit about making sure the numbers were here. So he, I think, should not have made a promise not to come back maybe last time. So I'm not going to make that promise. We're hoping, but I'm not going to make that promise. So if you have any questions, All
right. Any questions for Jay on the change order request? I would agree that it is time to replace the flagpole and get an internal. And we are at the point upstairs where drywall is going up, so the possibility of change orders upstairs is pretty small.
It's getting smaller.
Right.
Like I said, I don't want to make any final promises, but it is definitely getting smaller. Yeah, there's, I don't know if you've been up there for a while, but it's totally different. Yeah, it's starting to look like something. Getting drywall up, taping and mudding, and actually seeing some enclosed areas. So it's exciting.
Any questions? Ready for a motion?
I'll make a motion, we approve the city administrator to sign change order 22 in the amount of $19,080.60.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Daniels.
Yes.
Carmichael.
Yes.
Lane.
Yes.
Patterson.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
All right. Budget discussion. Mike?
Yes, budget discussion. We continue our series. Over the summer, we each at the end of each council meeting, we have some extra time to discuss the budget. So you'll recall the first discussion we had was about the general fund, law enforcement, and debt service. The discussion we had at the last council meeting was the two utility funds, the sewer and water. And tonight we're going to be talking about all the special use funds. There's more than a dozen of them, tend to be lesser amounts, single-purpose funds mostly. The largest one is the electric reserve and also the refuse fund. So we'll be stepping you through those here in just a minute. From an overall timeline perspective, this year is a little bit different. We have an extra couple of weeks to submit our revenue neutral intent. And then also the budget doesn't have to be finalized until sometime around the middle of September. So we have a little bit more time than we've had in the past. Since the last council meeting, we did get the final valuations from the county. And those final valuations include the county's calculation of our revenue neutral mill rate. For us, as we've discussed previously, because of the partially valued Panasonic building being such a big part of our total valuation, our official revenue neutral mill rate is quite low. It's only about 6.7 mils, and that would be down from the current mill of 13.78. And this essentially is because state statute says that you can't, in order to meet a revenue neutral intent, you can't collect any more property tax next year than you're going to collect this year. Panasonic is more than half of our total assessed valuation. It's in a TIF. We collect that tax, but we can't use it. It goes back for eligible improvements out at the Panasonic property, but we do collect it. So technically, we would have to account for all that. So if we ever wanted to meet the revenue neutral rate, we'd be down around 6.7%. Don't think that that's in the cards for us this year unless we really did something drastic, but wanted to clearly give you that report from the county, and this is what it looks like Exhibit A. What we did, and I've updated this a little bit since last time. So Exhibit B to your staff report is essentially what would be our own particular revenue neutral rate calculation if we just want to look at residential properties within the city. So if we want to tell our citizens that pay property tax in DeSoto that we're not going to raise your tax next year, even if your property value goes up, your tax bill to the city is going to remain the same. That's the intent of the revenue neutral rate, the statutory intent. If we want to do that, there's a way we can back into those numbers with the information that the county assessor gives us every year. So they break down the total assessed valuation and the total appraised valuation for industrial and for commercial and for farmsteads and for there are different categories of use description. And so we can take that number, extract just the residential side of that, and come to a revenue neutral rate for just those residential properties. And so that's kind of what I've done here. I've shown what the if you take that information out, for 2024, there were 2,100 of those particular properties in town. They had a total appraised value, a total assessed value, and you can see the total city tax per unit there is kind of the punchline of this. So you can see in 2024, the total tax per unit was around $700. For this year, remember we reduced the mill levy by about a third. And so the result there is that city property tax is about $530. Makes sense. And so the last two columns are really looking at just the residential part
of the assessed valuation. So if you look at 2026, if we kept the mill levy the same, if we kept it at the 3.78, the city's tax bill for the, and this is on average, the average residential property in the city would go up by $35. It'd go up to $569. If we wanted that to remain the same at $534, the mill levy is going to have to go down to 12.9, so less than 1 mil. That essentially could be our specifically calculated revenue neutral rate. I think if we were able to meet that rate, we could tell the citizens, if you, for your residential property in town, or anybody that owns residential property, that your city tax bill isn't going up. So does that all make sense theoretically?
So no matter what, we will be in a R&R hearing to exceed revenue neutral rate just because of the way the numbers work, and we're not hitting 6 mills.
Yeah.
But as far as the property taxes for our residents, we can keep the mill levy neutral or actually reduce it to where the dollar value out of pocket stays the same. But it would be a matter of messaging and making sure that when we go to hearing, that they understand that their dollar value is not changing.
Sure. Yeah, that's correct.
But we'd be going to hearing almost no matter what.
Pretty much.
Yeah. To where residents would hear we're going to hearing to exceed revenue neutral when for them we're really not. Or we're,
Correct, yeah. So what is required is that we, if we made that decision, we have to tell the county official, there's a form, I have to tell both counties, right? Because we're in Worth County as well. That, hey, we're going to exceed it, and this is our revenue neutral rate. And we have to put a number there. And if you remember last year, we knew we were going to be able to significantly reduce the tax, the mill rate, but we included in that notice, we included, I think, a flat mill rate or something higher than what we were, just to kind of be conservative with it. So kind of following with that, I would suggest, even though that we know kind of our revenue neutral rate is 12.94, and I think is a very reasonable goal to set for ourselves, it might be advisable to notify the county that the revenue rate that we're going to adhere to is essentially a flat one. Maybe we should consider, but we're just going to leave it at 13.7 mills, and that's what gets, and then that gives us the ability to come down off of that during the final deliberation. So that would be my recommendation. We have one more council meeting before we have to have that notice into the council, so we don't need to make that decision here tonight. We can talk about it again at the next meeting.
And again, that's where what we notice to them, we cannot exceed, but we can go below.
Exactly right, yeah.
And change our minds and go lower, but not over.
But not up, right. Okay, if that all makes sense, then I'm glad. I know extracting those numbers, but I think theoretically, it's not an overly complicated message.
That's it. Yeah. We don't want to give up ground that we've gained here. So
That's right. That's right. Okay, so with that, I want to not spend too much time, but give that all to do and take any questions we have. Now we have a new council member who's being dropped in the boiling pot of water in the middle of the budget process, and you and I can we can go on. We'll have conversations about everything. Don't be afraid to stop as we go through these. So these special use funds, I've listed them here on what page is it? On the second page of the staff report. These should all be pretty familiar to you. I think in years past we've added funds to this list. This year for 26, not proposing any new additions. I think the newest one's the technology fund, and anyway, we've added some of these over the years. As you'll see, some of them are just money in, money out, and they're pretty simple, and others are a little bit more complex. The first one then is the refuse fund. This is actually, it's another utility fund. It kind of operates just like the water or the sewer. We get revenues in from the service we provide, and that pays the bills. The difference is our expenses really are just one contract with Honey Creek, and so the proposed budget doesn't include any adjustments to the refuse rates, and so that future projections remain healthy. So showing here that the fund will remain healthy. No new fees. future budget projections essentially remain as they have been in the past. So if you want to look at exhibit in this spreadsheet, Exhibit C starts these spreadsheets here. So the refuse funds, you can see what we're proposing for fees and expenditures on the funds. Going through the rest of them then, I'll zoom back up here. Special Highway Fund. This is another one that's pretty much money in and money out. The source is really the fuel sales tax, statewide fuels tax that gets distributed to each city in the state based on population. Our revenue's been pretty stable over time, 175,000, just about. 26 budget's a little bit higher, and really the only expenses from this fund is a transfer to the debt service at 35,000 and a transfer over to the capital improvements funds at 150,000. Those will remain the same for this year, and you'll see that the fund balance looks like this. So with these special use funds, unlike our operating funds, we don't have a fiscal policy that we need to keep any sort of year-end fund reserve in these. There's not really a need to do that with these funds. So, you know, there's not this sensitivity to, well, we need to maintain a certain level of fund balance. So these can go essentially to zero without a problem. Just for your information, this is kind of what the fund balance, you know, it's kind of hovering under $25,000 throughout the projection period. Special Parks Fund comes from park fees from new developments, and we have a $10,000 annual fee paid by Cost Sand. In '24, we began allocations specifically for park improvements and intended for those funds to be directed by the Park Board. This year, we're going to be able to increase that. It had been about $20,000. We're going to be able to increase that to $30,000 for 2026. Again, you can see the funding balance there. This is pretty, you know, the revenues here are largely dependent on new development. So, you know, if we get more new development this year or next year than we anticipate, then that allocation can fluctuate as we need to. Transient guest tax is another one. We take in money for, essentially it's the bed tax from just the 2 hotels in town. It was relatively stable up until about 2022, you know, kind of bumping along with the occupancy rates. But then with the construction of Panasonic starting, our 2 hotels in town have been just full ever since. So the transient guest tax revenues have gone up pretty substantially since then. So projections for the show about a $55,000 revenue annually. We're not showing that to increase. It kind of took this bump in 2022, and we're showing it to kind of maintain because we only have the 2 hotels and they're at almost 100% occupancy, and there's not a whole lot of room to go up from there. But what it does allow us to do is to take, you know, the money is you have to spend it on promotion or tourism within the city. So historically, we've taken the bulk of this and provided that as an investment to the EDC. The proposal is to still do that. Historically, we've had about a $30,000 allocation. We upped that a little bit last year, and this year that allocation will remain at $55,000. So that's the proposal in the budget, and you see the transient guest tax fund, you know, diminishing here over time. But again, there's not really a need to maintain any particular fund balance in that. So the proposal for 26 is the $55 allocation to the chamber. Water maintenance fund. Again, this comes from development activities. For 26, projected revenues about $32,000 with the $45,000 transfer from the water fund. That's what we've done historically. Expense allocations for this, $20,000 to debt service and $200,000 to system maintenance. So we've got quite a bit of a fund balance built up here. And so for 26, it's really the opportunity to do a bigger project here in 26 to get that year-ending fund balance back down to less than $50,000. So we're showing a $200,000 project for that. Sewer maintenance is kind of the same way. It's the fund has been building a balance over time. So for 26, projected revenues about $30,000, and a $45,000 transfer from the sewer fund, and we've got an expense allocation of $46,000 to debt service and $40,000 for system maintenance. The electric utility fund is the kind of larger special use fund that we have to deliberate on. We call it the electric utility fund, although it's got nothing to do with electric or utility. This was generated back in I think it was the late 80s when the city sold our own electric distribution system to Westar at the time. And there was $1.5 million then put into this fund. And several years ago, we decided to start using those funds for purchases that otherwise we would have to borrow money for. Those purchases in recent years have been the larger rolling stock items that we cannot lease. So we've had this arrangement with Enterprise Fleet Lease to annual lease our pickup trucks and our other smaller on-the-road vehicles. They don't do the sorts of lease for like the dump truck and that. So we've made a practice of borrowing from this fund to purchase those. So for 2026, there's only one such purchase that's intended, and that is a new Peterbilt 548 dump truck for the street department. We actually had this budgeted this year, but decided not to make the purchase this year. So we'll go ahead and suggest that it gets allocated next year. And in return, we have this decision to make what's the term of the loan and how much interest we're going to charge ourselves. So looking at what we could possibly borrow from and what the city could, or the fund could generate in revenues if we just invested it, settle on a 5-year 5% repayment fund, so repayment program. And that would come obviously from general fund, street department budget to the electric utility fund. So you can see this bar chart shows the year-end fund balance in blue. It shows the annual appropriations, so the purchases in red there, and then the revenue stream as a green line. So you can see that, starting in 27, 28, potentially this builds up, but my guess is these red bars, one of these things will shoot up. We'll have some need that we're not exactly anticipating right now. But that is all part of this pretty sophisticated vehicle equipment maintenance and replacement program that's based on maintenance records that we enter into our fleet maintenance software. And Brandon does quite a bit of work throughout the year with all the departments to generate what's needed and what the replacement schedule is going to be, and updating these equipment costs. So there's quite a bit of work that goes in behind that, even though it's just the one. We're pretty good on our fleet, really. I think our equipment, if you just the eye test around town, you don't see many rattle trap bucket, rust buckets driving around, and you can't say that, as years pass. So, but it does, I don't want to just say we're getting shiny new things. It really does make a difference in the safety and the quality of work we can do, the efficiency of work we can do. When we don't get in the middle of projects and have stuff breaking down all the time, I'm telling you, it really makes a difference in what we can do, and the culture. People are taking pride in what they have. So really happy and I'm real proud of what we've been able to do using the electric utility fund like this. I think it's something we could pat ourselves on the back. Technology fund, this one funds all the new equipment, computers. All the revenues from it are essentially transfers from the other funds, so there's no other really source of revenue. But this just kind of gets it all in one place. Total expenses for the technology fund proposed about $173,000. Aquatic Center Maintenance Fund, this funds, we transfer from the general fund into this. Next year, expenditure about $34,000. So here's what the Aquatic Center Maintenance Fund balance looks like. And the Park Maintenance Fund, is proposed at $40,000 allocation for next year, unspecified maintenance, parks maintenance facilities. And that's the end of the special use funds. So that was about 10, 15 minutes. That wasn't too bad. So for next time, we're kind of at the point now where we've kind of absorbed all the initial presentations. You'll remember when we talked about the other funds, there we have this list of what we call budget enhancements. So some of those are one-time things, some of them are program enhancements, there's some personnel proposals in there. What I'm going to do for the next meeting, we've presented those to you, we talked about them a little bit, but we have not worked them into any of these projections yet, because the baseline projections I've given you so far don't include any of those. So what I'm going to do next, at the next one, is have a recommendation on which ones to include and which ones not. So it'll affect that year-end fund balance in the general fund, which will impact how much money we have for capital improvements. So you'll see that next time. We're also going to start the, I think the website's going live, maybe it went live today, or it'll go live early next week. The capital improvements, the public input on the CIP list. So we'll get that feedback in July, and we'll really be able to start talking about CIP priorities there in July and August, so that we'll have that wrapped up by September with the rest of the budget. So that's the general plan, and I think we're generally on track.
Generally, any general plan questions for Mike? Or specific plan questions? No. All right.
Okay, thank you.
Carry on then. We don't have an executive session, so we'll move to advisory reports. Correct. Anything, Mike?
Nothing further, thank you.
City attorney?
Nothing for me.
Brad just left, so he lost. Brandon, you're last.
I'm just going to continue to plug the property tax relief program. We still have some funding left, so if you know anybody who's interested, send them my way. That's all I have, Mayor.
All right, thank you, Brandon. Council comments. Danny?
Yeah, the old man's got to.
All right.
Welcome, Rhonda. Glad that you're on the council, and welcome, and happy birthday, Mayor.
Oh, thank you.
And I think Ed about covers it over here. The old man just knows.
Rob, anything for the group tonight?
Yeah, a couple things. Number one, welcome Rhonda. Was able to sit down and talk with her over lunch a couple weeks ago, and had a good time. Looking forward to having her on council. Second, talked to Mike about this. The residents on Borderless are happy not to have chip seal, although the quality of job and how it was handled has been highly questioned. So a lot of issues pertaining to that. So hopefully that can be remedied in the future. Finally, at the last council meeting, I voted yes on Rhonda, I voted no on the process. After the meeting, I was told that this is the process and that we did follow it. I did not respond then, but I will respond now, in that the way we handled the procedure and process was only partially correct. According to the city code, the mayor appoints, the council gives consent. That part of the process we did follow. The rules of order did not follow how we typically handle the process, but more than that, the higher standard is the Kansas Open Meeting Act, where the spirit and the intent of COMA is transparency in the public decision-making and public process, and that did not happen. So the spirit and intent of COMA wasn't followed. But on top of that, while COMA doesn't mandate an agenda for a body, it does say that if we have an agenda, that any action that we're going to take needs to be, as a body that's known in advance, which this appointment was known in advance, needs to be an agenda item so that the public knows that it's happening and knows that it's there. And that's been highlighted in the Guide to Open Meetings and Records approved by the Kansas Attorney General and the Kansas Department of Administration. And also the courts have ruled on it in Stevens v. Hutchinson, that said that any agenda must include topics planned for discussion if known, and this was a known item. So while we followed the city process, we didn't follow the process that keeps it open and transparent to our citizens.
Are you done?
Yep.
Rhonda?
I don't have anything, but thank you for all the warm wishes.
Kevin?
Welcome aboard. Looking forward to working with you. I got nothing.
All right. Welcome, Rhonda. Come to fireworks tomorrow night. The Stolen Winnebagos will be playing at 7 o'clock. Fireworks at 8:45 or thereabout. Well, I'm looking for Whitney to pop her head around. Oh, there she is.
I think she's pulling up.
I'm sorry, 9:45. Yeah, I'm a whole hour off. So look forward to that tomorrow. That's it.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
It's still recording.
This conference is no longer being recorded.
All right, now you're.